Hello, good day. I hope my voice is coming out clear. Good evening to all of you. I'm sorry how my voice may be sounding. I'm sick, I'm a little bit sick, so just recovering. But I just want to make this video today so that we should be able to analyze the Western democracy and other countries' democracy. I am coming. I just want to see how the video on YouTube is going. I'm using a new method to make it possible for me to stream both sides. Like streaming on Facebook. I'm live now on Facebook, and I'm also live on YouTube. But I need to see the YouTube videos for me to know how it's streaming. Just hold on.
Hey, steckt ihr auch manchmal fest in so furchtbar langweiligen Gesprächen?
Sorry, advertisement is popping up. Okay, let me listen to it. On YouTube. But I need to see okay, it's live. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm live in both sides. And I'm welcoming all of you today. If you are here for the first time, maybe you are watching from YouTube. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. It said error, please use a frame. What is the frame distance? Let me see. What the stream quality on YouTube is like it's not all that good. I'm sorry, I may be coughing because I catch cold. Nevertheless, let me see how Facebook is doing. Facebook is also good and fine. So welcome guys once again on today's program. I would like us to, first, there will be a video. I will play the video. I will not like the video to show so that they will not strike my account. So I will only play, you will listen to audio. So after listening to audio, I would like us now to analyze everything. Oh, the both side is sounding alarm keyframe. I will maybe reset it later. So nevertheless, I hope my voice is coming out clear. The picture is clear. Can you be able to see me? I hope everything is clear. If it's clear, you may write yes on the comment below from Facebook. If you are on YouTube, you may also write yes, that the video and voice is clear. I should proceed. Sorry, no, I'm a little bit sick. So if everything is clear, let me not waste your time and continue so that we will be able to look into it. So welcome once again to today's program. I try to set up something so that it will be possible for me to be live in both sides at the same time. So I would like us to analyze the video. Let me lower my own microphone and we'll proceed and just listen to what is going on. On this video that I'm about to play, the question will be asked to a Chinese, and the Chinese woman will explain the Chinese democracy, and the question will be thrown to a Russian, and the Russian person will explain their own democracy, and the question will be thrown to an American for the American to explain their democracy. But I would not like to deep so that you will be able to do the 1 + 1 yourself, and we will know which democracy is really democracy. So stay tuned and what and
this year the sound is good. They've worked very hard on it. Everyone's got headsets, so this should help. I'm Stephen Erlanger. I work for the New York Times. I'm the diplomatic correspondent for Europe, based in Brussels. But I've also spent time with each of these people in their home places. I was Southeast Asia Bureau Chief, so I know Singapore very well. I've been in China a number of times. Jeff Sachs and I met in Moscow in the early days of Boris Yeltsin. I spent 1981, almost all of it, in Poland covering Solidarność, and have been to Poland many times since. So we have a really good panel here. It's about a decade of democracy in China and Russia, which you could almost call the anti-decade or the anti-democracy decade. But these are two countries that matter to all of us. And I think we'll begin with China, because in some ways China is less in the news, but probably is more important. We'll see. So I have, as we go down, Sun-Yun Wu. Su is a researcher at the University of Zurich and specializes in China. Jeff Sachs, who a lot of you met last night, who is at Columbia as the Director of Sustainable Development, and everyone should know, is an economist. It's a very important part of who Jeff Sachs is. And then we have Jaroslav Kwisz, if I'm not mispronouncing it, or close enough, who is the editor-in-chief of the Polish journal Kultura Liberalna, based most of the time in Warsaw. So, Sue, tell us about China's democratic decade.
Thank you very much, Steve. Very happy to be here. So I would like to start off by saying that the Chinese government published a white paper on democracy in December of last year with a very interesting and intentional title, China, a Democracy That Works, outlining a very comprehensive version and vision of Chinese democracy. Now I can imagine the reaction in this room is that there will be a lot of strong reactions about this, mostly negative from the West. And I can understand why many Western democratic countries will find it very difficult to accept the Chinese definition and model of democracy, because it looks really different from what they are used to. And also there is a very strange and somewhat disconcerting coexistence of supposedly democratic elements and a persistently authoritarian one-party rule. So as a researcher who has the opportunity to do fieldwork in China, to study political and democratic experiments, I've come to develop a much more nuanced perspective about democratic development in China. So although I do recognize that the broader Chinese political system is not considered democratic according to Western standards, there are nevertheless what I call pockets of democratic possibilities, albeit constrained at the local level and in very selected areas. For example, democratic experiments have been undertaken to allow greater citizen participation, to enhance governance by enabling local officials to be more responsive and accountable to the people. Also, a fairly recent survey conducted by Harvard Ash Center has found that a lot of Chinese people are very satisfied with their government and the political system, although with the current strict COVID-0 policy, this might change. So I guess the big question that is also somewhat provocative is, how do we make sense of China's claim that it has a democracy that works? And what are the broader implications? I'm very excited and I look forward to discussing this with my fellow panelists as well as with the members of the audience.
Great.
Thank you.
Let me just follow up and ask you, I mean, we're coming up to a big party congress. You know, everyone's focused on this.
Absolutely.
Xi Jinping wants to be emperor for life. So how democratic is all that?
Well, I think as a researcher who does qualitative work, there is the high-level systemic political assessment of China, which we can all acknowledge that does not quite fulfill the democratic standards of the West. But I think if you really disaggregate the meaning of democracy, and I think this is something that scholars in academia try to do. You can see some vibrancy of citizen participation and democratic innovations happening at a very, very local level.
I mean, do you think this comes from the party's desire to make sure it's in touch with people who are upset or angry, people who, in other words, is this form of democracy another form of party exercise and control, or is it something more vibrant than that?
Absolutely. I think we have to be realistic about the presence of these democratic innovations and practices. I think the party is very concerned about keeping control. I think that's something that we will not be able to deny. But at the same time, they're very concerned about good governance and even democratic governance, because it is also to their benefit to ensure that the people's grievances are preempted, which is why participatory institutions and participatory practices are allowed. But they are managed definitely by the party. So you get a bit of that push and pull dynamic going on. At some points of time, in certain areas of China, you can have very vibrant developments, but at any point of time, the party can always sort of pull this back.
It's fascinating. Thank you, Sue. Yaroslav, talk about Russia's decade of, let's call it, democracy.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Well, I think there are some links between our subjects, and I would like to start with reminding you about a performance, a very moving one, that happened in Taiwan. There was an artist that asked a group of people to lay on the pavement and to remind people of the victims in Ukraine. It happened in Taipei. There was a kind of visual effect of showing people lying in the streets and pretending to be, well, dead bodies, in fact. But this was, first of all, at first glance, we would say that it was about solidarity. But in our discussions, we could also say that it was about something more. And it tells us a lot about Russia and China, but also about the perception of Russia and China. In fact, this link between Taiwan and Ukraine was a link that was made between the countries of what I call nervous sovereignty. The countries that are around empires, and those countries that would like to expand their territories in this way or another. And these countries, in fact, have a very special way of leading their foreign affairs and domestic politics. The fact that they are living their nervous sovereignty is something that is virtually omnipresent. And it's now we could see it since February, not only in Taiwan and Ukraine, but also Finland, Estonia, and obviously Poland. So what it means for us, first of all, to have this framing of nervous sovereignty means that we see different things than other Western countries. Then we take different political actions than the Western countries. And what is of perhaps utmost importance for the future, we expect a different outcome. Expected outcome is different. So to tell it, to go through these 3 points briefly. What is the framing? What do we see? We see not an event, the war, but a process. What is happening now is not an event, it's not a war, it's a chain in a link of events. And here we could discuss how far we go back in time, but it could be 3 years, or 2014, or 1989, or further on.
Number two?
So, number two, the actions that are taken. If you see it not as an event, but as a process, you think that you should, you are a part of the story that is experienced in Ukraine. So actions are taken, there was 1 week that is perhaps the most telling in March, when leaders of Poland and other countries went to Kiev in person, because that they believed that this is when it was a risky moment. So they thought that it would be how you display your solidarity. And that was the very same moment when Olaf Scholz and Emmanuel Macron, they were calling Vladimir Putin. That's the very same week. So you could see, like in a shortcut, that different actions are taken. The outcome, the third point. If you see it as a process, not as an event, here is a huge elephant in the room as to the expected outcome. In fact, those countries of nervous sovereignty do not expect any kind of temporary truce. They expect to win the war because it's a part of the process. They would like to see empires, in this respect Russia, perhaps in 1991, to go back to the moment when the state was in such a state that their sovereignty. If you see it from the Russian viewpoint, it would be collapse. If you see it from the Estonian viewpoint, that would be a moment of getting out of the trap of history, to get back to the self-determination of peoples.
Sure.
And in the end, or maybe in the beginning, to the agenda of human rights. It's about your decision how to pursue the happiness and getting out of the logic of spheres of influence. So this is a different framing when you see it not as an event, but as a process, and I believe it's a very big elephant in our room.
That's good.
Thank you.
I mean, we will come to that, but first I just want to ask you more directly about opinion in Russia itself, because the Russians spend a lot of time, as in China, trying to figure out what annoys people, what's going on. I mean, it's not quite like in China where you have someone in every apartment building, but the Russians are paying quite a lot of attention. They do sophisticated polling, you know, just to see where things are vulnerable. Do you see this accelerating? Do you feel it changing? Do you feel like somehow there is in Russia, it's very hard for us to tell. As journalists, we have to be these days under the new rules extremely careful. But do you see any real sign of, let's call it a democratic, popular uprising that will have any effect?
Well, we should perhaps be very cautious about our wishful thinking.
Yes,
we would
exactly.
We would really
That's
like.
the problem of people in the neighborhood. There's a lot of wishful thinking.
We would like to see another protest in Tiananmen. We would like to see another wave of democratization in Russia. But what we see now is perhaps that we moved. Yesterday we talked a lot about disinformation, fake news, and disinformation age. Rightly so. But at the very same time, in many ways, we moved from 24 hours channel, mass media, to history manuals. And we have different ones, so different that in fact we are reading the same events in so different ways.
Yes.
So when you see Vladimir Putin's justification of his assault on Ukraine, it's very deeply rooted in history, in his reading of history.
Sure.
When you are seeing the counter-reaction of Ukrainians and in fact all those nations of nervous sovereignty from Finland to Taiwan, their reading is
Right. Okay,
very
good.
different.
Thank you. Jeff, it's very hard. You've got to be...
So I paused the video. I just want to alert you people, just to let you people understand what is going on. This is New York Times from United States holding a democratic conference about China, democracy, and Russian democracy. If you listen to what the man just says before he tried to jump to the new person that will start talking now, What they are calling democracy in any nation they don't like is uprising. He put it there. He put it on that guy. And let me correct myself. The guy that is representing Russia, or the guy talking on behalf of Russia, is not a Russian. He's from Poland. I missed his identity. He's from Poland. He's not from Russia. But he was there to talk about Russian democracy as a Russian. And a lady, a Chinese lady, is also there talking about Chinese democracy. What is she saying? They are trying to sell with their mass media that Russia and China are autocratic government. That the Xi Jinping of China is trying to become lifetime king that will rule China as long as he wishes. And they are not practicing democracy. And the young lady made him to understand that the way the West analyze democracy or see democracy is different from the way Chinese see democracy or Chinese practice democracy. Democracy is democracy, but it will be in the favor of the country that is practicing democracy. America is practicing democracy in the sense that if you go against their wish, they will deal with you. But if any nation follow the American footstep to deal with whosoever go against their wish, you are not practicing democracy. Because those people that are disobeying the government, democratic government, are being engineered by United States. Just listen to what this Polish guy was saying about the Russian type of democracy. He tried to link Ukraine to Taiwan in the sense that America planned that the same problem that is going on in Europe, in Ukraine, by now supposed to be going on in Asia, China, and Taiwan. The Chinese have different way of organizing things. Why didn't war break out in Taiwan is because America have not started moving their soldiers to build a military base in Taiwan. But in Ukraine, America and their NATO system have built military bases in Ukraine. They build navy bases in Ukraine, in Black Sea of Russia. Upon that, Ukraine is not part of NATO, but every NATO infrastructure has been developed inside Ukraine. And Russia sees it as a red line that no one should cross. And for decades, Russia has been telling the West, do your NATO thing, do your security groups, but please do me a favor. Don't bring that your group near my border. They don't want to see those groups around their borders. But what did the West did? They want to bring Georgia, that has border with Russia, into NATO. They want to bring Ukraine into NATO. Now, many people in Africa, most of you don't know what is NATO. NATO is a military aggressive union that was established by the United States against the Soviet. And Soviet Union has collapsed. America now sees it as if they own the world. And every NATO member possesses no right to open a military base in American territory. But you becoming a NATO member, you are selling your sovereignty, that's your freedom, your country, to Americans to come in and build a military base in your territory and have access to your politics, have access to your policy makers, have access to your everything. That is what they call democratic countries. Anything that falls beyond this thing, giving America everything about your country, you are not democratic enough. But you see, as they brought Chinese people to come and criticize their government in America, and brought a Polish man to come and criticize Russia in America. Now, an American man is there. Let's listen to what the man is about to say. Whether he will also promote America before the world. And you will now see the reaction of the free media of the United States that always want every nation to come out to criticize their government. Take a look. If the salad they are preparing for you, if they will love to eat the salad, let's watch and see. Let me continue.
Somehow the synthesis. But you've worked in both places. You have an understanding, I think, of how the systems work. What is your sense of, I mean, let's try to stick to the topic a bit, at least at the beginning, of democratic signs, movements in both countries. What's your take?
Yeah, my experience is that different societies have very deep-rooted political cultures and traditions that extend far back in history, and for good and for bad, and that these cultures are real, they are persistent, they are different, they don't rank on an easy scale that this is the best and this is the worst like we want to do. And we need an approach. I very much like what you said and agree with it. There are different narratives that are held, and these different narratives have merit. And the solution in a world of different narratives is to speak with each other more than we do. We in the United States, and I say we, what I really mean is our political elites, do not speak with Chinese political elites except to point fingers or to yell at them or to do other things. We certainly don't even shake hands with Russian leaders or diplomats. But I've lived my whole career for 42 years of active duty listening to different narratives and seeing those perspectives from different sides and finding a lot of merit in the various positions and saying if you would sit down to speak with each other, we'd actually get somewhere. So let me be specific.
Okay.
China looks today not completely different from the Han Dynasty, a centralized administrative state. And with Confucian culture, with a tradition of excellence of the Mandarins. When I speak with Chinese senior officials, which I do often, they are the best informed professionals I know in the world. When I deal with them, they know their brief. They're sophisticated, well-trained, occasionally my students. And they believe in professional excellence of a centralized administrative state. And that political culture is more than 2,000 years old. When you are looking at Russia, it looks a lot like Putin looks a lot like a Tsar. It's not an accident. That is a culture of authority and a culture of tradition. When I look at my own country, the United States, it is a semi-democratic, white-dominated, hierarchical, racist society that aims to preserve privilege by the elites. That's how it was formed in 1787. It was a slave-owning, genocidal country, killing Native Americans for a white culture. But amazingly, it still looks that way, although we're much more diverse now than we were.
Let me ask you this, Jeff, because this is...
I want to point out that these are deep cultural distinctions.
Right.
But we shouldn't just simplify because we say democracy and you know, these are, yes, it's important. What's important is actually the details. As I mentioned last night, Plato, democracy, that was the last thing on his mind. That was the enemy. The plus was a philosopher king, of course,
Right.
in the Republic. And for Aristotle, it was much more subtle and complex, of a system of governance that mixed governance by the one, by the few, and by the many, but on the good side of the ledger. And one more point I want to make about democracy, because we're in a democracy forum where we treat democracy as the good. The most violent country in the world in the 19th century, by far, was perhaps the most democratic or second most democratic, and that was Britain. You can be democratic at home and ruthlessly imperial abroad. The most violent country in the world since 1950 has been the United States. It's
Jeff,
been by far involved
Jeffrey,
in more,
stop
wait a
now.
minute, in more
Let's,
wars. For one
Jeffrey,
moment, Steve.
I'm
finished
Jeffrey,
my
I'm your
sentence.
moderator, and it's enough.
Okay, I'm done.
So now I am back. I am back once again. I hope you have picked the point that I am trying to make. They would love to bring you to United States in their studios, and they will whitewash your brain. They will try to tell you how bad your government is, how bad your country is, knowing quite well that every problem tormenting every nation in the world is caused by United States and Britain today, not yesterday, today. But they will always use their media to whitewash. Imagine a Chinese person was asked how bad their government is. The woman was finding it difficult to climb out of that question. They never interrupted. They want her to mess and talk against the Chinese government in open New York program. And they asked a policeman to come and analyze how bad Russians are. A policeman stood up and talked rubbish about Russia. They now ask an American, how powerful is American democracy? And he starts tearing everything down. That their democracy is racist, democracy that wiped the entire red Indians from the planet of this earth in protection of white democracy. Democracy that is today wiping the entire Africa. The democracy that went to Syria and seized their agricultural land and their oil field. Everybody's watching. And everybody's dictating to Russia to pull out of Ukraine. But watching United States sitting in Syrian world and telling everybody we love oil. And Syrians have weed. Do you know that Americans are harvesting the Syrian weed, shipping everything to United States as we are talking now? But you will never see their media come on air to condemn them. But they will invite Africans. Africans will tell you how bad their governments are, that they need to be destroyed, not knowing that they want to curtail you. Via you, they will use you to convince others, and they will use you to penetrate your country, and they will destroy everything, as they have convinced the Muslims in the north. Boko Haram is there, doing their bid, working on behalf of the West. And the West are there mining Nigerian solid mineral resources in open eyes. All the whole weapons that are being shipped to Ukraine since February, the war started in Ukraine, half of it are making their way to Boko Haram in Nigeria. How managed? It's not up to 2 days. America exchanged Russian businessman with an American prisoner in Russia. They said that the Russian man was war of lord. that the man was moving weapon all over the planet, smuggling ammunition. Who is smuggling ammunition now from Ukraine to terrorists in Nigeria? I even overheard that the man that owns American's private military, they call it Black Waters, as they are not longer fighting an open war, their duty now is to move military weapon from one end to another. America will claim that weapons are being shipped to Ukraine for Ukrainians. Nigerian special intelligence is telling the government of today that Nigerian military can't even fight Boko Haram now because they possess anti-tank. Anti-tank that was made for Ukraine is now in terrorist hand in Nigeria. How can you explain those things? How can such a thing be explained? Is it not the best democracy? They want to give you democracy and they want to tell you how you have to run the democracy so that every loophole will be utilized. Most of you may be asking, what did Nigeria did wrong that will warrant America to be sponsoring the terrorists in Nigeria? You have lithium animals. The future technology is all over Nigeria. 19 states of Nigeria has lithium. Do you know the price of lithium? And the quality of Nigerian lithium is like sweet bonbon. It's one of the highest grade. 1 gram of it is almost 13,000 pounds. And they are mining it in Nigeria. They give Boko Haram all the weapons they need to block Nigerian military not to come over to that place. That is wonderful democracy, my people. And we should embrace the democracy of the Americans. Is it not wonderful? Should we be able to look into the democracy and amend the democracy to suit us so that we will be able to move forward? A democratic nation that will never allow any country to develop technology that will challenge their own. You are a threat. If Nigeria now start waxing technologically, they will sanction Nigeria because they don't want anything that will challenge Apple, anything that will challenge any of their tech. But they will sell to you, they want you to grow. You can never grow. They borrow you money and they tell you that this money is not made for infrastructure. This money they are borrowing you, you are not allowed to use that money to build companies in your country. They will give you loan. That loan is not meant to pay for workers that has already served the nation. Now ask yourself, why are you borrowing? Why are you then borrowing money? If you can't use the money you are borrowing to build the railway, to build new infrastructure, to build industries, to build new power station, what is that loan made for? Okay, they are giving loan on behalf of Nigeria for the president to bunker the money. And they will tell you that you are owing them and you are not moving forward. But they are the one blocking everything. Do you know that the things that have been killing Nigerian political elites is if you dream to build a refinery in Nigeria, you will die. Or you lose your position and they will useless your life. You will appear in The Hague. They will tell you that you're a drug dealer, that you have a smuggling drug to United States, even though if you doesn't even possess a passport. You don't possess a passport, but your drug has been landing in US through spiritual spirit. They will deal with you. Why do you think that Jonathan ruled all the whole thing he ruled? He never made mention of building a refinery. If he dares it, if at all he dares it, he would die like Ahmadu Bello. Ahmadu Bello saw that they have discovered oil in Nigeria and they start fighting the British to start building refineries all over Nigeria. What do? They cohort the Nigerian military to go after the northern elites that were in cohesion for the development of refineries. They were all wiped out. And their press start writing literatures on how Igbos killed a northern elite. Hey, how Igbos, the man that shoot him is an Igbo man. They changed the whole narrative. Upon that, they are the problems. Till today, every Nigerian believes that Igbos want to dominate Nigeria. That's why they killed the northern elites. They did not kill the southern elites. People keep on asking, why should they kill the north and leave the Zigs alive? Nobody wants to discuss that area. Nobody, even the Obasanjos of today, that will open his mouth wangling against Buhari, that he single-handedly installed as president of Nigeria, can't even stand firm in front of Nigerians and tell Nigerians why Murtala Mohammed should die, while Abacha should die, while Ahmadu Bello should die, why the northern elites have been dying. Leave these cankerworms that are there parading, using religion to whitewash Nigerians. Ask your leaders the real question. Why must our leaders die and the ones in the east be alive? They will never answer you that question. Do you know why? Because it was pre-planned to put division, war inside Nigeria so that they will focus and continue. Northern youth, let me ask you people. In northern Nigeria, do you know that your leaders are eating dollars more than the Americans? You will visit any leader now, he will give you dollars, he will not give you naira. Is he doing exchange? Do he have printing press inside his room where he's printing dollars? All of them are receiving commission from the solid mineral they are mining in Nigeria, using Boko Haram to block them. Something that could have made Nigeria 20 times of Dubai. Some few hand of people are only benefiting from it. The entire nation are on the road. Do you know why I'm calling the North? Because they are the ones that are being fooled. They are the ones that are being manipulated. And they are the ones on the street begging for money. While the elite are smuggling their children to abroad to study, gather knowledge, to continue where they stopped, rendering you useless and continue dealing with you. Igbos, it's only Nigeria is holding them down, but Igbos are surviving on their own. But the North are not asking their elders simple, real questions. No, think deep. Why must this happen? Why must I be fighting Igbo man? Why must Igbo man be my enemy? Why should an Igbo man kill an Hausa man? Hausa man is not holding Igbos back. By that time, Igbos were in power in Nigeria, even more than the Northerners. Why should they kill? Should be the question. You are holding mountain of leadership, but you went and killed Emir. Why? Because those people were pushing for things that are not made for Nigeria. Imagine Nigeria is borrowing money now. Nigeria is borrowing billions of dollars. And in that same Nigeria, so-called investor came in to invest up to $1 billion in Nigeria. What did I say? Up to $1 billion are being invested in Nigeria. For them to whitewash what they are doing, they set out a panel to investigate the investor. Is it not wonderful? They need to be investigated. And the investigator was investigating and found out that the $1 billion that was invested in Nigeria did not pass through central bank. $1 billion did not pass through Nigeria central bank. Did they fly in with the plane? How come? How did that $1 billion come about? Some people own the money. It's some people's money, and they know that the money is too much for them to take out of Nigeria. They were forced to invest that money in Nigeria. So as that money did not pass through central bank, something generated that money. Can somebody brain work? As the founder, want to meet the president to report what he found, they blocked him not to meet the president. Most of you, Nigerian news is not carrying what I'm telling you now. But the man, all of you know him, he don't normally speak good English, he speak Hausa. Somebody translated everything to me. They blocked him not to see the president to give the final result that, Mr. President, this $1 billion investment did not come from abroad. It was generated from here. Are we now printing dollars? That should be the question every northern youths that want to survive and see better tomorrow should be asking their elites. Thank you very much.